Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this little guy, the Casio PRW-3000T-7DR. Oh man, is that catchy. I picked this guy up because, as I mentioned in a previous review, I had this guy when I was younger, and I was a big fan. This is a altitude compass barometer sort of watch, and at the time that was the bee's knees to me. That was the coolest thing ever. And so I wanted to see what Casio's been up to in the many years since this guy came out. And so I picked up its modern incarnation. First, let's do a quick size comparison. So here is your PRW-3000. Here, I'm just going to call this the ProTrek, by the way, so I can save like 3 hours. Here's the Sin 104. Here is a Casio MRW-200H. Got a review coming of that. Here is your Casio Oceanus. And here is a little Casio G-Shock sort of affair. And whose model number is very complicated, and I also don't remember it. But anyways, I got a review of this guy. Let's go on ahead and, as usual, jump into the good, the bad, and the ugly of this particular wristwatch. Okay, so in terms of your good, there's a fair amount of good here. First and foremost, I do like the fact that this is available with a bracelet. I'm a big fan of bracelets, and this is an actual titanium bracelet, which is worth a damn. I mean, given it's not a Rolex bracelet by any stretch of the imagination, but it works. There's not a whole lot of flex to it. It doesn't pull hairs. I like the bracelet. It's good. And so I like the fact that it's even available with one. Costs a little bit more money to get on the bracelet, but, you know, hey, it works. It's good. Another thing that I like a lot about this guy is that if you want an ABC watch, Altitude-Barometer-Compass, very often they are very, very large affairs, and also they're very tactical, like the Suunto Core, the Suunto Suunto. They tend to be very tactical and also very large. You look down at that thing and it's like, okay, there, Navy SEAL. Nice try. This guy actually could pass for a watch among people who are not, you know, tactical ninjas. So I like that a lot. This is nice. A couple of other nice things to it. It's got solar charging. You can see it's got this ring around the display here with the ProTrek where that's written. And underneath there, these are all solar panels, which is nice. And it means that it charges. If you just set it in the sunlight, you can charge it up. And it's got a power indicator. Right now, it's got high power. When I got it, it was medium, so it's been charging. And it also has a power save mode, which means that overnight, when there's no light coming into it, it detects that, and after I think an hour, the display shuts off to conserve battery life. And if you expose it to light or you hit a button, actually didn't need to hit that button, the screen will come back on. But it's a great feature. It's saving battery when I don't really care. If I'm asleep and I don't need to look over at my watch, there's no sense of having the display on there. So that's good. It's also got radio control, which means that every night it listens for a radio signal from the atomic clock, and it can do that in the US and Europe and Japan, a couple of other places, wherever it's broadcast. And this little triangle means that it picked up atomic time last night. And so when you take it, you know, put it on your wrist, you know for damn sure that the time is accurate. It's atomic accurate. Even if it's not to the millisecond, it doesn't matter. You can't tell that. And so the other nice thing is that when you've got two atomic watches next to one another, they are right in sync, which is kind of nifty. What can I say? So I like that, and it hasn't missed a day yet of picking up the radio signal, so I'm impressed with the reception there. It does have a lot of features, which are nice. You've got, for instance, stopwatch in there, you've got a timer, you have an alarm function, you have world time, you have radio control. This tells you the last time it got the signal. And in addition to that, you've got some fancy features, like a compass. So right now it's telling me that this direction is east-northeast. That's not quite true. It's due east, but hey, whatever. It's got a barometer, and this is actually very accurate. I have been checking this. There's a weather station not far from where I live, and I've been checking it against that, and the pressure's accurate. And you can also see that the trend, which is nice, because that explains why it was so damn windy this morning. This has been changing a lot. And it also has an altimeter, and we'll talk about that in a little bit here, but that's definitely there. So there you go. A couple of other things I like. This has a light, and I'm going to try and... Oh, wrong button. Here we go. There you go. See, you got a light in there, and it illuminates the entire face of the watch fairly evenly, so there's no part of the watch you cannot see when the light is on. You hit the light button down here, it's this big guy, and suddenly everything is illuminated. Nice. Works well. No complaints there. It is another good thing is it's way less huge than some of your other options. I got a size comparison video with the PRW-3500, which is huge. It was ridiculous on my wrist, and this guy actually, I got small wrists, and I can rock this. It's maybe a little bit big for me, but it's not completely out of line ridiculous, and I appreciate that very much. There's not a whole lot in watches for people with smaller wrists, particularly with this. And then on the main, as a timepiece, on the main screen, you get the day, you get the date, and seconds. So that's nice. That's all the information you really need, as well as AM, PM. So there's your good. It's got a bracelet. It's not terribly tactical. It's solar, it's radio powered, and it's got all kinds of different features, some of which are good, some of which are a little less so. And it's a good size, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So let's jump on into the bad. So the bad on this guy is, yeah, it's there. The alarm is a little bit on the quiet side. It's certainly not going to wake you up from a dead sleep. It might if you're a light sleeper, but think about this as an alarm for, oh crap, I forgot to grab my tea bag, rather than an alarm for something super important if you're, in loud situations, something like that. Another unpleasant issue is that the interface on this guy is not terribly intuitive. Because you have a bunch of buttons, and at any given screen, these buttons will have different functions. If you're adjusting something, compass and altimeter serve as your up and down button, but this guy's a wild card. Basically, I feel like I do need the manual to do a lot of the fancier tricks that this guy offers, and certainly for setup, you need the manual, as opposed to some watches that are a little bit simpler, like this little G-Shock over here, where it's got a much simpler interface, so I'm not a big fan of that. A couple of other, well, a bunch of other issues, actually. You can see here that this bracelet has already started to scratch up, and that's kind of titanium's lot in life, but this bracelet is actually scratching a whole lot easier than some other titanium. This is another Casio titanium band, but this is a slightly more hardened band, and you can see here that the bracelet is a heck of a lot worse, a heck of a lot better for the wear, even though I've been wearing this guy a lot longer, so it's a very easily scratched titanium. The clasp on this guy rattles a fair amount when it's closed. I'm going to see if I can... Actually, I can't show you this because I fixed it. This is just a little bit of museum putty kind of thing. Blue tack, whatever you want to call it. And I've just stuck some on there so that when this guy is closed, it stays closed and it doesn't rattle around. Because little rattling things on my wrist bug me. It's a silly little fix, but it does the trick. I'm just not a big fan of having to make the fix. That should just sit flush and happily. So, there you go. A couple of other bad things going on here. It's got a bunch of the always-on indicators. So, for instance, it will always show you when the sound is off with this little musical note here. It will always show you when power save is on, and that's not necessary at all. And it always shows you DST, but that's pretty subtle. I really do dislike when manufacturers have little illuminated indicators that are always on and basically are meaningless. Show me power save when the screen is off and none other time. Show me the sound is off when this hit the button. Aside from that, don't put it on the screen. Don't clutter it up. It's not so bad on this guy relative to, say, this guy, where you have all those indicators, but still bugs me a little. These buttons are very, very large. I mean, if you look at the watch in terms of thickness, not only is it a fairly thick watch, but the buttons are huge. And that means that as this is on your wrist, it's very easy when you slide your hand into a jacket pocket, for instance, to accidentally hit the barometer button. Because, just your sleeve comes up against it. And then next time you look down at your watch, you're going to think it's 9:85 at night. And then you're going to wonder what weird parallel universe you slipped into and, decide to finally lay off the sauce. But, nonetheless, it's very easy to look down and not be looking at the time here. And that's partly because the special functions don't shut off. If you put it on barometer mode, it will stay on barometer mode for a long time. I would kind of prefer that those shut off after a certain amount of time, or at least that's an option. It makes a little more sense with altitude, because it tracks the altitude so long as you are in altitude mode, but nonetheless, that's a little bit frustrating. Let's see here. The compass on this guy is iffy. Yeah, so earlier it was saying that this direction is east-northeast. Oh, no. Okay, I rotated the watch, and now it's saying northeast. Look, that direction is due east. There's no two ways about it. But if you just hold it steady, it will make different decisions about the compass direction. That's no good. And so this is a compass that can be relied on to tell you that that direction is roughly east. But that's really about it. And it's also a little hard to read at a glance because the little 3, hopefully you can see this, the little 3 dot button is your north, then south is opposite that, east and west. That's the best indication you get, short of what it's telling you here. It's also really absolutely worthless inside a car where you've got metal, at least it has been for me. And there is a fair amount of drift even if you're not touching the damn watch. I mean, right now, it's just changing. So I'm not a big fan of the compass functionality here. Not impressed with that particularly at all. Speaking of unimpressive functions, the altimeter is way off. I right now am at about 900 feet, and it's given me 785, which is about in the range, but this can be thought of as being accurate to about 100 feet. Not terribly impressive, but, you know, I can see if you're a pilot or something where 100 feet isn't that important, but you want to know you're at 36,000 or something like that. This could be helpful. Not terribly impressed there. And then finally, the price on this guy is a little high. It's a $350 or so, and that's getting to be a little bit much. And given you're paying a little more for the bracelet, but that's a pricey watch. And so I got to keep that in mind. So you're bad, the alarm's quiet, the bracelet scratches and rattles a little bit. There's a little bit of extra stuff on here. It's very easy to look down and not find yourself looking at the time. The compass is pretty iffy, the altimeter is pretty iffy, and the price is, well, pretty iffy. Let's go on to the ugly here. So on the ugly front, first off, this is a lot of painted plastic. This is not metal right here. This is plastic that's been painted. It's going to be plenty durable because modern polymers are a wonderful thing, but when this gets scratched, it's going to get really ugly, and frankly, a lot more ugly than one metal. So I'm not a huge fan of painted plastic there. So there's that. Another really ugly thing is that this has a thermometer on there. But the thing is, it's saying it's 89 in this room, and that is not the case at all. I think it's closer to 78 or so in here. And the reason it's off is that this has been on my wrist. So let me review. The temperature is not accurate when the watch is on your wrist, and it says this in the manual for the watch. If you want an accurate temperature reading, take the watch off of your wrist, set it down for 10 minutes in the shade, and then you will have an accurate temperature reading. No! I'm sorry. No, that's not how a thermometer works. I cannot think of the last time I've thought to myself, I wonder how hot it is. Hold on, let me take off my watch, put it in the shade for 10 minutes, and then look and find out. No! Bad, Casio. If you can't do it right, if you can't get a good temperature read on the wrist, which I understand why you can't, don't put it in there. Don't even lie to us. Just, have a little BS indicator flashing right next to the temperature gauge. Something. That's not impressing me. Another ugly thing here is that the viewing angles are not great. It's very, very easy when you're wearing this watch to lose the ability to read the time or to lose the ability to see what's going on here. If you are tilted it all away, you will suddenly find that you have lost that view. Same thing on this side or on this side, and certainly from the top, although the top is actually the best angle to keep seeing things, which is brutal. So I found myself very often when I'm using this watch having to shift my wrist to be able to get the proper angle to be able to read the watch. And that's not just a reflection issue. And so even just like with my arm sitting on my leg, it's sometimes very, very hard to read this, and so I have to change it so that I'm looking directly into it. And again, I'm used to analog watches where that's just simply not an issue. But still, that's a little bit ugly, and it makes it a little bit less of a functional timepiece. Casio has actually addressed this in the 3100 model of this guy. They use a new screen that's supposed to have much better viewing angles, but I kind of wish they just moved to that guy. The 3100 is a lot more expensive and harder to find. So there you go. Then finally, the last ugly thing to consider here is that nowadays, all of these extra functions, your altimeters, your barometers, your thermometers, are less necessary than ever. In 1997, this was really cool, because that was the only way you're going to get the current barometric pressure, or the current altitude, or something like that, without a whole bunch of fancy tools. But nowadays, everybody, well, most people are carrying a smartphone. And a smartphone can give you the altitude, can give you the temperature accurately, it can give you the barometric pressure, it can get you a compass reading, it can get you a timer, stopwatch, atomic time, all of those things very easily and honestly a little bit more accurately because it's using GPS, it's using, local, than this guy can. So certainly an internet-connected smartphone is a much better version of this than this. But that's something to keep in mind, and that's a little bit ugly. So if you're just thinking about this, it's like, oh, I'd love to have all those functions. You probably already do. Do you really need them on your wrist, too? So, there you go. There's your ugly. The lot of painted plastic. The temperature is just bad. Viewing angles aren't great, and this watch is less necessary now than it has ever been. Let's go into the final conclusions, though. There is a saying in the English language, which is something is a jack of all trades, but a master of none. And that really describes this watch nicely. It is an okay altimeter. It'll get you within 100 feet. It's an okay barometer. Actually, the barometer's pretty decent. It's an okay compass. It'll tell you vaguely that's east and that's north. It's not going to be good enough for pilots, for orienteering, or for weather forecasting, but that's okay. It doesn't need to be. It's an okay stopwatch, because the ergonomics of hitting these buttons aren't necessarily great. It's an okay alarm. It's not very loud, and an okay timer. It's got okay construction, with an okay bracelet, and the size is okay. And because of the viewing angle issue, it's an okay timepiece. But the thing is, that's kind of where it ends, is it's okay. So the verdict on this guy is very split. If you feel like you're in a situation where you might need any of these functions, this might be the only way to get this. So if you need a watch that has an altimeter, or a barometer, or a compass, if you're out in the woods all the damn time, and you know that your phone might run out of juice, but you want a compass, but you're not carrying a compass for some reason, I don't know, this is probably one of your best choices here, because among all of the other Altitude-Barometer-Compass watches, this is fairly small. It's not so expensive, it's solar-powered, and it's durable enough that it'll last. And so this is a stellar apocalypse watch. If you need something that will give you all of these functions in the absence of everything else, then yeah, this is great. But the thing is, if you're just living a boring, kind of urban, a suburban, everyday carry sort of existence, this is just an okay watch. I'm not saying it's bad. No, it's far from bad. It's a nice watch. But it's not great. It's not bringing me joy. It's not super compelling. It's just okay. And honestly, if that's all you're after is a good digital watch, look at something like this guy, the little G-Shock guy. Same solar-powered, same atomic time. Doesn't have all the other features, but all the other features aren't so necessary here, and they're not so perfect there. So, consider these kinds of things too. And yeah, so I guess that's where I land on this guy, is that this watch is okay. It's great if you're planning on an apocalypse, but, for everyday boring life, okay is the highest praise I can muster. Shame, but such it is. Anyways, I hope this has been helpful for you, that you had a good time for this review, and that you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful rest of your day.